Well, welcome to the 700 Club. God is not finished with America. Well, that's the message from South Carolina Senator Tim Scott as he begins his bid for the Republican nomination for president.
Senator Scott believes he can unite this country and usher in a new wave of optimism and hope through faith. In this interview with CBN's Abigail Robertson, he reveals what God spoke to him before he entered the race.
Calling himself the candidate the far left fears the most, Senator Tim Scott kicked off his presidential bid in North Charleston, South Carolina, with a message of freedom, hope, and opportunity for all Americans.
Our party and our nation are standing at a time for choosing victimhood or victory.
The Buck Dome at Scott's alma mater was packed with people energized about his presidential run.
Let's go! Let's go!
Almost a year ago, Scott told CBN News he'd only get in the race if he felt like God was calling him to do so.
I'd like to say there was like an audible voice, but I didn't have one. But there was this impression on my heart that was really about peace.
Leading up to his announcement, Scott's been traveling the country getting a sense of the people.
The one thing I heard consistently is that we are a faith-filled country, that our foundation as a nation is a Judeo-Christian foundation. And the further we get away from it, the harder life gets. The closer we get to it, the better life is. That's the one message I get excited about.
Before making it official Monday, Scott says God revealed this to him.
About 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I was thinking about it. You could feel the nerves and the butterflies. And finally, I heard the Lord speak to my heart and say, this is not about you. Don't confuse it. You're my vessel for this journey, but it's not about you. It's about the American people who are starved for hope, looking for opportunities. They want to protect this nation that they love.
In a time of deep political divide, Scott believes he can unite the country and is fervently optimistic.
I really felt like the Lord was saying, remove you from the equation and let's just see what happens. Now, I'm very confident that he's not finished with this nation yet. And my hope is that we usher in a new wave of optimism and hope as we turn back towards faith. Not just faith in the Lord Almighty, but faith in each other and faith in our future.
Known as one of the GOP's most conservative senators, his top priorities include America's security, school choice, pro-life legislation, and fiscal conservatism.
16% inflation since President Biden has taken office. It's devastating and crushing families like the one I grew up in. Being raised by a single mother, I know there's dignity in work because she taught me that. So helping people understand that to restore dignity, if you're able-bodied, you work. I think that is called common sense. It finds common ground on the left and the right.
While Scott made no mention of former President Donald Trump in his speech, the leading primary contender released a statement striking an unusually friendly tone with his latest GOP challenger and wishing him good luck.
We've had some good work together. What I think is that America needs a president who can persuade the other side to take a second look at some of the common sense policies that we will present to the American people. I think I will do a good job doing that.
Scott says his strategy for winning the GOP nomination is simple.
Be myself, believe that America can do for anyone what she's done for me. We're going to talk about restoring hope. We're going to talk about creating opportunities, and we're going to protect the America we love. And that's going to start at our southern borders.
As he enters the race, Scott says he's leaning on Scripture for strength and encouragement.
I still believe in the goodness of America. That's why I lean on, as I said in my speech, Ephesians 3:20. That God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Let's get back to believing each other and setting our sights so high that it's impossible for us to fail.
Senator Scott's not the only GOP 2024 hopeful officially jumping in the race this week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to announce his candidacy on Wednesday, and former Vice President Mike Pence may soon follow. Reporting from South Carolina, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Well, the race is about to get crowded. CBN News chief political analyst David Brody joins us now to talk about Tim Scott's bid and the rest of the Republican field. So, David, it's interesting that he's got some unusual endorsements. John Thune has already endorsed him, and boy, Larry Ellison has come in big, a $30 million campaign contribution. So tell us about it.
Well, he's trying to split the difference here a little bit. You know, you mentioned Larry Ellison and John Thune. John Thune in the Senate for a long time, kind of a bit more of the establishment crowd. The folks in the Senate and honestly writ large in Congress love Tim Scott. So there's that part of it. There's the donor part of it as it relates to Larry Ellison. He has some major bucks up front to get going. And then let's remember his roots. I mean, he's a Tea Party guy through and through. I mean, I did a profile of him 12 years ago. I can't believe I'm dating myself. I had a few more follicles back then, but he's the same guy. I mean, he's the Tea Party guy who was talking about and infusing Bible verses in policy prescriptions for the United States back then. And so, look, I think he's formidable. You know, Donald Trump is obviously in a lane by himself. There's the Ron DeSantis lane. And then I think there's the Tim Scott lane that includes Nikki Haley, potentially Mike Pence as well. That's the way I see it right now, Gordon.
Any chance of Governor Youngkin joining in? I know there was some talk about it, but do you think he's going to decide to run?
Well, there has been talk about it. It remains to be seen. I'm not convinced that he will do it. But then again, I think you also might want to wait a little bit in terms of how this plays out. We know that Donald Trump has a few lingering legal issues, and that might be putting it mildly. So you wait to see how that plays out. You wait to see how much Ron DeSantis does when he gets in. He's obviously been taking a lot of hits, and he hasn't even gotten in the race. He'll do so this week. So I think it's a wait and see on Youngkin. But if he gets in, he's going to be in that third lane. There's been talk about Youngkin being in kind of in a lane all by himself. I don't buy it. I think ultimately the way this is going to play out, Gordon, is after Iowa, traditionally the way this happens is you have the winner and you have second and third place. There'll be three people coming out of Iowa. Who are those three? You assume it's Trump. You assume it's DeSantis. Who is that third person? Will it be Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, possibly Glenn Youngkin? I think that's the way this is shaping up.
Well, let's talk about it from the two top contenders, if you will, Trump versus DeSantis. You know, my mind goes back to an earlier race. It seems like a long time ago right now. But there was another governor from Florida running who supposedly was the front runner, supposedly had a lot of backing. And boy, he ran into a Trump campaigner that just completely blew him out of the water. Are we about to see that happen again with DeSantis?
It's so interesting you say that, Gordon, because it does feel eerily similar to Jeb Bush, or as Donald Trump called him, low energy Jeb. And so he got crafted with a narrative that he did not want. Jeb Bush, did not want. And now Ron DeSantis in that same boat with the Ron DeSanctimonious, and there's been other things as well, to starting to craft a negative narrative on DeSantis. This happened with, as you know, with Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, right? Little Marco and Lion Ted. And Donald Trump is a master brander. And, I think if DeSantis doesn't do well here, I think it'll be a colossal mistake that he didn't get in earlier. I understand he wanted to get through the Florida legislative session. But ultimately, this narrative about DeSantis has already started to leave the station, and DeSantis has a lot of work to do. I think these next 30 to 60 days are imperative for him to be forceful and out front if he's going to have any shot.
Well, wasn't the reason for delaying mostly about campaign finance law? He's able to do these, whistle stop tours, if you will, except they're, tarmac stop tours. He was also able to do that foreign tour, which I think misfired on him, 5 countries in 4 days. It just was too taxing. Is that the reason he's delayed?
That was part of it, and I think it was just a tactical blunder on his part. I mean, so you get the whistle stops, and you don't have to go through the FEC on this stuff. The problem is that all the meanwhile, the narrative is crafted that everybody knows you're getting in, and Trump is going after you, and you can't really fight it at that point because you're not a declared candidate. and so you have issues, and you have the Florida legislature to deal with. So he has to be governor of Florida. I think it was a tactical mistake, Gordon, to do that. But I also think the main reason he didn't go is that he wanted to get done Florida's business. And he's been, Ron DeSantis is going to talk about his resume in Florida, and it is stellar. The problem is that if you put his resume up against Donald Trump's resume as president, that doesn't carry as much weight. As much as all the great stuff he's done in Florida, Donald Trump did a lot of great stuff as president, the way conservatives see it. So that won't be an inroad there, I think, for DeSantis as much as people think it will.
All right, well, let's play a scenario where the heavyweight Trump campaigner literally knocks out DeSantis. He brands him early. That brand sticks, and DeSantis can't make it. And then Trump falls into one of the legal quagmires. We're all watching, and which one is going to finally get him. And it's determined that he's unelectable. What do you see? Some kind of contested convention where we don't know the nominee until the convention actually happens? And if that is the scenario, who do you think wins?
Well, it's a great question. Oh, Gordon, the hypotheticals. The hypotheticals.
I love throwing you hypotheticals, and you respond so well. That's a softball.
I know you do.
You can hit that one out of the park.
Yeah, I'm used to hypotheticals from you now, Gordon, which I like, by the way. I consider it a challenge. No, but look, I think ultimately this has a 50% chance. How's that, Gordon? A 50% chance of this going to a contested convention, because I think what you're going to see here is that Republicans are not going to make the same mistake that they did in 2016 with Trump. In other words, if you remember, Marco Rubio, there was a lot of pressure on Rubio to get behind Cruz, so all of that support could go to Cruz, and there could be a one-on-one between Cruz and Trump. That never happened. Trump went on to win the nomination. But in this case, I think you're going to see a lot more intense pressure on whoever that third person is to say, hey, look, let's coalesce behind whoever's in place number 2 and let it be a mano-a-mano situation. So therefore, at that point, it's 50-50. We don't know. It could go contested, but I think it'll be a lot closer than people think either way.
All right. You like hypotheticals. Let me give you another mano-a-mano. The president versus the Speaker of the House, and the economy is at stake. Is this epic political battle actually going to kill our economy?
No, I think here's a hypothetical I think will become a reality. America's not going to default here. The debt ceiling will be raised, and Republicans, honestly, from a PR perspective, are winning this right now for a couple of reasons. One, McCarthy has handled this very, very well. He's, in essence, framed it as we've got to get some spending cuts, and already the White House has admitted we'll do some spending cuts. So right there, that's a victory. Really, we're talking about $130 billion. That's the difference. The White House wants to cap levels right where they are now. Republicans say, hold on, we want to go back to fiscal year 2022, about a year before that. In other words, less government spending, and that's about $130 billion difference. I think they'll meet somewhere in the middle, and even if they don't, the bottom line is Republicans, I think, have the victory here. And Democrats have all the pressure to settle this thing because they control the levers of government in the important Senate, obviously, and in the presidency. So this is a win for Republicans, but either way, it's not a win for the country because we keep on squabbling over the debt ceiling. It's all about negotiation, all down to the last moment.
All right. Well, David, thanks for the analysis, and thanks for hitting it out of the park.